My name is H.A. Goodman, and I'm an author, columnist, and journalist. To support this YouTube channel, go to my Patreon link below, but also buy my book, my latest book, in the But Her Email series, Book 3, The Allman Brothers and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. There's an ongoing cover-up that potentially involves California's Attorney General Javier Becerra. When he was House Democratic Caucus chairman, they asked, the law enforcement, FBI, and Capitol Police asked for a server, a copy of the server that the Allmans breached. He gave a falsified, bogus copy, in addition to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, allowing the Allmans to work for over 80 Democrats in over a decade, many of whom were on the House Intelligence Committee, and now you have two of these staffers indicted, facing jail time. Read the book. There's so much information that isn't discussed regarding a massive cover-up, potential espionage, and enormous amounts of data transferred in addition to procurement fraud and millions of dollars in stolen electronics. So the book is below. Definitely also check out my 1-hour discussion with Hard Bastard. Subscribe to Hard Bastard, amazing, really amazing channel. About my latest book, and a wonderful, wonderful review from Elizabeth Voss at Disobedient Media. Those are below as well. The Hollow Bravery of Ben Shapiro. This is a New York Times hit piece on Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is a conservative, and I don't agree with a lot of his viewpoints, but he's a very intelligent guy, and he's not an ideologue. Every claim he makes is backed up. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't have a rebuttal from my vantage point on a lot of things. But he's not somebody that you would call, like, he's definitely not a Milo Yiannopoulos type figure. But he's effective enough, because I don't view, there are certain people that I just view as having no credibility. So in terms of like Milo Yiannopoulos, those types of people, no. I did a segment on what I think of that type of pundit. Ben Shapiro, though, is, in my view, even though I disagree with him, not only reasonable, but I mean, he destroyed Cenk Uygur in on a whole lot of topics. I'm going to read you, though, The Hollow Bravery of Ben Shapiro. Even the article title is lame. What his brand or how he presents himself, it's not about bravery. Most of what how Ben Shapiro communicates is he'll go ahead, point to facts or polls or statistics to back up his claim. Now, that doesn't mean I agree with everything he says. He comes from a purely conservative vantage point. But I'll just read you this critique. It's pretty dumb. And it's the New York Times, the same publication where Maggie Haberman writes, who is viewed as a friendly journalist of the Clinton campaign. That's in the Podesta emails. So that's in the words of John Podesta and, the words of other people within the Podesta campaign. The New York Times is a public relations firm that suppressed Harvey Weinstein stories. WikiLeaks came out with that just recently. Ben Shapiro, the conservative writer, prides himself on speaking bold truths to liberal power. His shtick goes something like this: set up a speech in a progressive bastion, ideally a college campus full of coastal elites who have never left their bubble. Spar with snowflakes who are offended by something he says about race or gender, and perhaps even believe he never should have been invited in the first place. Post the exchange on the internet and use it as proof that the cultural consensus is stacked dramatically against conservatives. Well, it's not really about that, actually. The cultural consensus is stacked against conservatives. Why don't you just look at Twitter or Facebook, or there's actually, we can just forget about Twitter or Facebook. Look at the late night talk shows. Look at Hollywood. Forget about the cultural consensus. what about the guy's ideas? What is it about his ideas that this author doesn't like? There's really no discussion of his arguments or ideas. It is, oh, he's trying to do this and market himself in this way, but really the marketing is horrible and disingenuous. So it's not, this is the epitome of what's wrong with liberals or the left. I don't know if the writer is a progressive, but definitely the progressive movement. It's focused on everything but the ideas. See, I wouldn't mind debating Ben Shapiro or anyone. Milo Yiannopoulos, they definitely don't want to link those two together. They're two different entities altogether. But there's no discussion here of what Shapiro talks about. As Mr. Shapiro has put it, okay, the left is okay. It's true that campuses tend to be hostile places to conservatives. No, Berkeley, there's like riots that take place. It's not even an issue of hostile places. There's riots that take place. Then you can't debate. You can't if it's a person who's extreme, they'll prevent the person from even speaking. That's what's taking place, not just yeah, sure, campuses are liberal. What Mr. Shapiro does on campus is shadowboxing, meant to pander to his conservative fans whose values dominate mainstream American culture. Okay, and what does CNN and MSNBC and the Daily Beast and the Young Turks and everybody on the left do? They pander. Do they not pander? If he wanted to be genuinely brave, he'd challenge some of the wrong-headed ideas held by his far right-wing fans. What does that even mean? If Rachel Maddow was genuinely brave, would she then attack Keith Olbermann for the insane things that he said? Or Howard Dean for saying the Clinton Foundation should help Puerto Rico? Okay, then she goes into a Columbus Day issue. And then she talks about how the author, to begin with, many white conservatives are already largely dismissive of concerns regarding police brutality. You know who's also dismissive? Obama and Loretta Lynch. Can this author or anyone state anything that was done by 8 years of the first black president to protect black citizens? The citizens without whom he would not have been a two-term president. The Democratic Party owes a great deal, political debt, a great deal to the African American community. What has the Democratic Party done to prevent Eric Garner, John Crawford, Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown? What have Democrats even written legislation, much less passed legislation, to protect black citizens from what the point of this op-ed is saying in one paragraph? So the whole issue is, of course, utilize this topic, say that, yeah, because he's against, I believe the phrase white supremacy does exist. Ben Shapiro does not. That's a difference in viewpoint or ideology. But here we have the author disparaging Ben Shapiro for not believing or not addressing police brutality, yet not even acknowledging that the Democratic Party has done nothing. Especially Obama and Loretta Lynch did nothing. Loretta Lynch actually basically said, you know what, if citizens are killed if civilians are killed, police departments don't have to document how many civilians they've killed. They're encouraged, but they don't have to document it. That's a Democratic administration's Department of Justice Attorney General. If Sessions did it, it would be an example of white supremacy to a great many people. Donald Trump's campaign was built on similarly hollow rhetorical flourishes. He did not tell the truth to the American people. He sold the American people falsehoods that millions have already believed. For example, that America's inner cities are hellholes, and that black people are, quote, have nothing to lose, and that the biggest danger to America's working class are undocumented immigrants. This message then was not popular because it was controversial or spoke truth to power to an or because it was controversial or spoke truth to an overwhelming power. It was popular because it didn't. Okay, so the author is basically saying Ben Shapiro is just pandering to the views of the majority of Americans. Even if that were true, it doesn't address the validity of his argument. It simply addresses how he markets himself. So at the end of the day, a hit piece on Shapiro was, oh, he markets himself in a disingenuous manner, and what he really should do, which is what Rachel Maddow and Joy Reid and everybody else on the left, Cenk Uygur, is go after his own side, because that's what the frickin' New York Times does. The New York Times talks all the time, writes all the time about Haiti, the $10 billion missing in Haiti. That just happens to be missing. The New York Times talks all, writes, is a public relations entity for the Clintons, for the Democratic Party. Just ask Glenn Thrush, who left Politico, now works at the New York Times, and who gave an article to John Podesta pre-publication, before it was published, and said in the email, oh yeah, don't tell anybody. Or just ask John Podesta, who frickin' works as a columnist now for the Washington Post. It's not the hollow bravery of Ben Shapiro. It's the hollow bravery of writing a hit piece against a conservative who has ideas you don't like, who's gaining popularity. But instead of focusing on the actual ideas you don't like, it's talk about how he markets himself and how he's really not speaking truth to power because America is more conservative than people think. Yet President Obama was a two-term president, and Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania haven't voted for a Republican since the 1980s. They voted for Bill Clinton twice and President Obama twice. Give me your thoughts below. Definitely buy the book, The Awan Brothers and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That link is below if you want to know about the cybersecurity nightmare pertaining Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Awans and the team of staffers, Imran Awan and Ina Alvi, and the rest of their team. Give me your thoughts below. Thank you so much for listening.